Welcome to the Jeff Knows Inc. Entrepreneurial Podcast with your host, Jeff Lopes. Jeff has over 2 decades experience as a serial entrepreneur, building brands like Kimura from his home basement to a multi-million-dollar global brand that has sold over 250,000 pairs of boxing gloves. Jeff's here to educate, guide, and drive you on the process of bringing your ideas and dreams to reality with the inspiring stories from some of the top business minds.
Welcome to episode 148 of the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Lopes. Super excited to have on today Clifford Starks. This MMA athlete turned entrepreneur. Great conversation. Sit back, everyone, and enjoy. We are live on the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Lopes. Super excited to have on from, you said Phoenix, Arizona? If I got that right? Mm-hmm. Clifford Starks. What is up, brother?
Hey, how you doing? I'm great.
This is going to be a fun conversation. Tons of layers. Yeah. We are connected through a mutual friend. And man, I love everything you're doing currently with all the coaching and the inspiration you're leading onto the world, but also your background with MMA, wrestling. There's tons of layers we're going to get into. Let's start off by where you grew up, how many siblings you had, and just give me a little rundown of your childhood.
Yeah, so I actually have unpacked this since my coaching process. So it kind of makes sense why I do what I do, And one of my first memories, I was 4 years old, and I remember my biological dad driving away. And when he drove away, I just thought to myself, people who can drive away from your life, who are supposed to be there, so get very, very strong. Like it was, get strong, because those who are supposed to be there might not. And so that's what I focused on doing. When I was 5, my grandfather passed away. And I would never, it was a very, very emotional time for me, specifically being in the hospital and not knowing what was going on. You know, they're not telling a 5-year-old kid, hey, your grandfather's about to go. And so I knew something was going on, but no one was really telling me anything. And then next thing you know, my grandfather's in a coffin, and I'm terrified. Like, I'm freaked out because I know that's going to happen to me one day. Like, that's how I took it in. Just like, holy crap, I'm going to die one day. Yeah. And I actually coached myself, and I didn't even know I was doing that at the time, but I coached myself through that process because I had 2 options. I'm like, all right, I get 2 options now. Like, I can know this thing and sit on it and think about it all the time, or I can live as much life as I can. And so I go, I'm just going to live as much life as I can. So I really thank my grandfather for giving me that gift, you know, to be able to say, yeah, this is going to happen one day, and you get an opportunity to do as much as you can. My mom remarried when I was 6. And at 6, it was, this guy has been with me to this day, you know, and has really supported me and has guided me. And you asked me, do I have any siblings? Yeah, my parents, as of now, my real dad, he's my dad to me, you know. And we talk about, there's a saying, blood is thicker than water. And people can interpret that however they want. And I heard from one scholar who actually said it this way, and I really, really resonated with it. But it's the blood, sweat, and tears that you go through with someone else is thicker than the water of the womb. And so that's my dad, you know, through and through. He's always been there for me. He's always supported me in every way that he can, in the best efforts that he could do. And so I took that, and it really gave me this amazing perspective to really stretch and say, all right, people who are supposed to be there can absolutely screw you over. And people who don't have to be there can be there for you any day of the week. And by the way, we're all going to die. So I packaged that whole thing. And that's kind of what's garnered into who Clifford Starks is through his entire journey. yeah, that's the basic start of me.
That was, I mean, those 3 years from 4 to 6, it was a lot of, it's a massive cycle of life for such a young child. And for you to still resonate and have those thoughts in, and still be able to reflect on it, how it changed your life at such a young age is pretty powerful, right? I mean, a lot of people, when you ask them 4 and 5 years old, if they even remember, most people remember most of their childhood, right? They'll remember certain peaks or moments or highlights, but to actually have those strong memories was very, very powerful. So, and I love what you said, and I truly believe that it's those that are with you, right? And everybody has a different purpose in life. And I always say this: you might have somebody in your life. Your dad might have been in your life for those 4 years, but there was a purpose for those 4 years. Your dad now, that's been with you all these years, there's a purpose for him to be there. Your grandfather is a purpose. I always tell my wife this, and it's funny because I talk about this always as well, as my wife is very emotionally attached to people, where if she has a friend for 10 years and that friend decides to say, we're not friends anymore, it hurts her so much. And I'm the opposite, where I have that understanding where if somebody's in my life for 10 years and they decide to leave today, I'm okay with it, because they had that purpose for those 10 years. If I go to the grocery store and see somebody and I'm having a shit day and they smile at me, that person for that 1 minute had a purpose to meet me and change my outlook of the day. So I'm a strong believer in every cycle in your life, there's a purpose for that individual or people that we allow in or allow out. There's moments that we need to be grounded. So we need certain people are going to be those hard knocks in our lives. And there's moments that we need to be free, and we're going to have those people that are going to surround us. So I love that you said that. And I'm so happy that you've had the opportunity to have a good father figure in your life. Because we talked about this before we went on air. I think it's such an important thing, right? Fatherhood to me is a huge part of what I believe, and I strive to be and do every single day. Right. So going into, obviously, athletics was a big part of your upbringing as well, because playing sports. What sports were you very active with playing growing up, or was it always the wrestling?
You know, it's funny. So I wasn't even, I would like to say, not a natural athlete. I didn't get into sports until high school, but I did excel. You know, I really excelled in sports when I got into them. And it really came from a combination of my upbringing and being the little chunky kid that people said wouldn't really amount to much. And I look at it and my first step, my first challenge of a process that I was going through. Well, I had like basically 3 challenges back to back to back, but my first real test for me versus me was when I saw myself in a mirror. I was at a hotel with my parents, and I remember seeing the front mirror, and there was a mirror behind me. And so I got to see myself from a completely different angle, and I'm looking at myself and I'm like, this has got to change. I got to change.
How old are you at that point?
I was 13.
Yeah. So just before your teenagers. I mean, you're really a teen already, but it's a crucial age, right? Mm-hmm. My children are, my son's 13, my daughter's 15 right now, and you're seeing the change of their personalities. And obviously when you're going through it, you might not realize it yourself, but now you're watching your children. It's just this cycle you can see happening right now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So that triggered it. And that became, I guess, something that propelled you into taking care of yourself at a different level at that point.
Yeah, everything just changed, you know, and it was a process just like anything else.
Yeah, of course.
I'd love to go more into my entrepreneurial process, because you said you've been doing it for 25 or
20, going about to 26 years soon.
Yeah. So I'd love to unpack that piece too, because when I step back, I'm like, it's all the same process. Like the principles are always the same. And so going through my weight loss journey, there were struggles, there were ups, there were downs.
Yeah.
And I ended up putting it together. and I ended up keeping the weight off consistently. And that's one thing that propelled me into athletics and also becoming a personal trainer.
And
I didn't get into athletics until high school.
Yeah. So when did you get into the wrestling? Was that through just
That was
college or
my
high
freshman year. Yeah, so that was my freshman year in high school, and my sophomore year, I ended up playing football, and I did track and field as well. And I really I didn't know anything, so I was way behind everybody else, but I could pick it up because I just tried. There's nothing else that I could say other than I try. I give my all. And when you give your all, you'd be surprised how much you can learn and how quickly you can learn and how quickly you can grow.
Yeah. Now transferring that to college, where'd you go to college, and did you get a scholarship for wrestling, or you just started?
I didn't.
You didn't, huh?
What was interesting? Yeah. So I went to Mesa Community College for 2 years, and then I transferred to Arizona State University, and I ended up being the backup to. The stories are amazing because me and him actually wrestled in high school too, and we had some back and forths. But he ended up being a heavyweight, and I was never a true heavyweight. So when I went to ASU, they needed someone to go with. His name was Cain Velasquez. They needed someone to go with him, and I trained with him, and he was a nightmare to go with. I mean, even these ears, people look at my cauliflower ear and say, oh, that must have been MMA. Like, no, that was one guy wrestling with the same guy on a regular basis, and he's an animal. But yeah, I told my coach that I couldn't continue to wrestle because I needed to pay my bills. So he says, but you go with Cade, and not anyone really goes with Cade. And I go, Coach, I get it. I got to pay my bills. And he goes, if I give you a scholarship, would that take care of it? Like, absolutely, that would take care of it. So I did end up getting a scholarship, but I didn't start off with a scholarship. And that's the other thing. It really drove home that hard work can pay off, even when you don't know that it's paying off.
So give me a couple stories of your college wrestling. Some stories that put a smile on your face, because that was obviously a big chunk of what propelled you to the next section of your life, right?
Yeah, so there's a spot called Squaw Peak, and they call it Pescoa Peak now, but it's a nightmare of a mountain to go up. And I remember the first time I went up that mountain, I was one of the first ones to get to the top out of all of the weight classes. And I was really, really just proud of what I had become as I went through my journey, because again, I was that out of shape, overweight kid. And so to go from that, like in wrestling, there's kind of the running joke that the lighter weights they're just more cardio specific than the heavier weights. As you get heavier, it's just, and I'm this heavier set guy. I'm still a big guy. I have a big frame, but I'm in shape. And I really use that as a propelling point. Like, I can be and do whatever I want to be and do. No one can stop me from doing that if I practice it enough. And so I took pride in the cardio that I had built up on my journey. And I go, look, I can be whatever I want to be, whatever weight I am. It's up to me. And I was super happy about that opportunity, especially, so I'm beating one of our guys up, and my coach sees me coming to the top. He's like, there you go, Starks. And there was they actually named a move after me, where it's just a basic move too, but it was a move that I did pretty consistently. And I grab around the arm, and I could actually walk around a guy to pin them. And they would call it the Starks hit. So that was another proud moment of like, wow, I got my own move named after me.
I love it. So let's do the transition. So college, you're done college.
Mm-hmm.
Did you go right into MMA, or you went into work fields?
Work field. Yeah, I started right in personal training.
So you were started writing in personal. You said writing and personal training, or
No, right into personal training.
right
I
into
jumped
personal
right into
training.
personal training. Mhm.
Okay, and that's something you're still to this day continuing, right?
Yes, so I actually changed my format a little bit. I do more of a holistic approach.
Okay, so you do the whole mind, body, spirit.
Yeah.
Okay,
Hmm.
we'll get into that in a bit. So let's talk about your MMA journey.
Hmm.
So how did that all come about? Obviously, you had a wrestling pedigree, which
Yeah.
obviously helps. I mean, it's probably one of the best, if not the best, base to start MMA. So
Yeah.
where that transition start? How did you? Was it through Kane Vass? Is it like who got you back into, or who guided you into that path to say, okay, let's take on a fight and start making a little money as a fighter? How did it all change?
Yeah. So I did a bodybuilding show
Okay.
with 13 of our girls, and 12 of them ended up competing. One wasn't able to,
Yeah.
but it was really cool, going through that process with all the girls.
Yeah.
And it was not easy. Like to diet so strict
Yeah.
for so many months on end was just like, wow, this is different. And I really like the challenge. I like stepping up on the stage and getting out there and seeing who I could be. And I go, well, where can I really, really challenge myself? Like, what would be really, really challenging? I go, huh. So I'm watching fighters fight. I go, that looks so effing hard. Like, that looks like one of the hardest things you could do. So I go, I think I'm going to try this. And what's interesting about me,
What age were you at that point?
I was 27.
Oh, so you started quite late.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like I actually did my research before I even jumped in there. Yeah.
27. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Hmm.
So I mean, and at that point you hadn't wrestled in how many years?
That had been
Probably 6, 7 years.
5, 6 years. Yeah.
Five, six
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
Okay, that's an interesting story. Okay, I had no clue. I mean, it was funny because I just had Chad Mendes on, which is
Uh-huh.
he's had a really really impressive career and he's got an incredible following, incredible young entrepreneur too. This guy's got like 5 companies, like such a you know who Chad Mendes is?
I do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he followed what most wrestlers do. They finish college and boom, I got to start making money. I'll take an amateur. I'll take a pro fight and that's what it all starts. For you to have that gap and then get back into it. Did you have any striking experience, or you just started at 27? Let me.
Oh
learn.
my God, no. Yeah, it was terrible.
Oh God. Okay, so which gyms did you join?
Yeah, so I ended up going to a gym at it was I think it was called Fight Ready, and the only reason I can't remember it was because I wasn't there that long. I was only there for a couple months, and then I ended up going with the Lollies, and Trevor ended up being my main coach, and this was at Arizona Combat Sports. So that's the one that I was with for about 7.5 years in my fighting career.
Okay. Okay. Is that where Kane is, or no?
No, Kane went to America Top Team.
He was in Florida, Kane?
No, wait, I'm saying the wrong one.
No, not
AKA.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
that's
yes.
the one.
That was it. Yeah, that was it. Do you still have a relationship with him or no?
We talk very infrequently though.
Yeah. So let's start that journey from the moment you got into a national mixed martial art gym to getting your first feel into a cage or a ring. What was that time period?
So I ended up going into a fight relatively quickly. I actually went in, so I had one fight with the other gym, and
So after a couple of months, you already had one.
Yeah.
Amateur?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I jumped in there right away. And then my second fight was with Arizona Combat Sports. And let me tell you, you don't know what you don't know, of course. And so I got my leg kicked into hamburger. Like I didn't know how to check a kick properly. And I'm just taking these kicks and I'm taking the guy down. And what really sucked with the amateur is you can't punch the face. Like you could only punch their body.
And during stand-up?
Yeah. No, in the stand-up you can punch the face.
Okay, but on the ground
When you
and
take
pound.
them down, you can't punch in the face. I'm like, well, they're taking one of my weapons away because I don't know how to strike. I don't know how to check a kick. So I'm taking him down, like trying to figure out how to punch this guy in the stomach and the rib cage while he's just lighting my leg up. It was a hard fight. It was probably my hardest fight. Well, it was one of my hardest fights. My fourth fight was probably my hardest fight.
How many amateur fights did you have before you went pro?
I had 3 amateur fights, and then I went pro in my 4th fight.
And that was okay. Give me. Let's talk about that fight. You said that was the hardest. Do you remember? What was it? What was the name? Does anybody know? Tony something. I can't remember his last name. Off the top of my head. So how did that fight work out?
It was hilarious. Like, so for starters, Trevor calls me. He goes, "Yeah, remember we said we we're gonna fight this weekend?" And he's not talking about me fighting this weekend. He was talking about another one of our fighters fighting that weekend. I go, "Yeah, I remember." He goes, "Well, they're looking for an 85-pounder. Do you want to come?" I'm like, "All right, I guess we'll go. Let's see what happens." Yeah. So I hadn't even been really preparing for a fight. Like, I just kind of hopped in and said, why not? And we drive down. I've never cut down to 185 before either. And so I ended up making the cut. I was really, really happy about that.
What were you walking around at roughly?
I walk around between 215, 210. And I try and keep weight on when I'm in athletics, but normally I walk around between 206, 209. Yeah. And so I was about 212 when I was cutting for that fight.
Yeah. I mean, for the listeners that don't understand the wrestling or MMA weight cuts, it's pretty brutal, huh?
Yeah, they get you a little bit. Yeah. And your mind goes to interesting places, which is pretty cool. It's great for the mindset. But I'll tell you, so after I'm cutting that weight, I end up getting a warm-up in, and I'm getting a warm-up in with a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I didn't know he was a black belt at first. And this guy's tapping me all over the place. Like, he's just tapping me all over the place, and I'm like,
and this is your warm-up.
Yeah. So I'm sitting there like, how is this giving me the confidence to go out and fight somebody else? I'm like, screw it. It is what it is. You know, the one thing that I can control. And as I entered the fatherhood stage, I learned this even more, but it's your attitude. You know, you can't 100%. Necessarily control anything else, but you can control your attitude going into it. So I'm like, I'm just going to give my all and see what happens in this fight. And so, the walkout music. And the walkout music was all I do is win, win, win. I didn't even pick the walkout music. So I'm listening to this song. All I do is win, 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 no matter what.
After you just got your ass tapped out.
Yeah. So I'm like, but I already was going to try and win the fight, but damn, this is the song that they're going to play for me? Like, all right, I better show up.
So give me a little story. You said that was your hardest fight. Give me a little story of the fights, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, so we get in, and the guy's a technical fighter, like a very technical fighter.
Striking or ground?
Striking specifically. So he hits me with a good shot, and I go to take him down. And he is scrambly too. Like he's got some good scramble. And he was wearing me out on the first round. And so I go back to my corner, and Trevor goes, "We got to stand up with this guy. Like you're getting too worn out. Like we don't." And I'm like, all right. Like in my head, I'm thinking, am I about to get knocked out? But it's like, he's right. I can tell that he's right because I only have so much gas in the tank. I'm like, all right, let's see what happens. And so I go to stand with him and I hit him with some heavy bombs. And again, my striking isn't really proficient at this time. I haven't been doing it long enough, but I'm ballsy and I did what I could. And I ended up coming away with the victory. Yeah, I beat him 2 rounds to 1.
Let's talk about a couple of things. And I think of all people, you could probably give a big insight on it.
Mm-hmm.
Going into a fight mentally, how challenging is it? Especially the day of and the walkout and behind the stage and all that stuff. It just coming from a pro athlete, I want the audience to hear that. Because I've talked to a lot of people, so I think I understand it from other people, but I think you could really clarify that.
Yeah. It's probably one of the most challenging things I've ever done because you're not only just thinking of the fighter, at least from my experience. I'm not thinking about just the fighter. I'm thinking about how I'm going to look. I'm thinking about how I'm going to perform. I'm thinking about what is the audience going to see. I'm thinking about all of those different things. And then I have to focus my mind on what I can control. Because if I try and focus on what I can't control, it just drains my energy even more. And so when I am getting prepared, I think of all the things that I've gone through, all the training, all the preparation. I think about the music that I'm listening to. I try not to get my head too caught up into the fight too early on because I don't want that adrenaline dump. I don't want to feel uncomfortable in there. And I think about what I'm going to do. And I also think about how easy and hard it can be. I talk about that duality split again, and it's important to know what it can be. Because if you don't go into that space, when your mind gets into that space and it doesn't believe it can get in that space, that's a dangerous place to be. That's like, oh crap, what do I do?
Yeah.
But if you know that that space is a possibility and a reality, you can fight through it, literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
And so that's what I really, really focus on practicing. And that's what I loved about the sport so much. It's so real and it's so raw. It's like you get to see who are you that day, and you get to see who you are in front of a large stage.
Let's talk about a loss. How do you deal with it? How did you deal with a loss? How did you deal with it the day of the fight, and how did you deal with it the next morning?
So my losses they hurt and they suck when it happens. One of the things that I love, I talk about getting your hand raised. My whole thing is about getting that hand raised. And I look to get my hand raised every single time. And when you don't get your hand raised, it stings, for me at least. And so I take the sting, I unpack it, and I go, okay, what can I do to do better? Like I always focus on what I can do instead of what I can't do. And I've learned these skills before my fighting days, which was nice to have. But that's what I always focus on. Like, all right, where do I need to adjust? What did I do right? What did I not do right? And how do I do it better next time? And I go right to the drawing board right away because I know when we stop doing something, we can get lazy and lethargical. It can get very, very dangerous. So I really focus on getting right back in my training, whether that's mentally or physically.
Yeah. It's funny because that was one question that I actually asked Chad Mendes when we had him on. And he said it was a battle of nothing to do with himself losing. It was a battle of fighting the feelings of how he let people down, how he let his family down, how he let his coaching down, how he let his trainers down, his training partners. So that was his battle for days after a fight of how he had this guilt and he had to learn how to release it because he felt so guilty for not coming through for everybody, because he put that pressure that he was doing this for everybody on his shoulders, which I think is a very, very tall order to get through, because you're putting so much added pressure on top of yourself, right?
Yeah.
Retirement. So you're obviously officially retired from MMA.
Mm-hmm.
No comebacks?
Wow. I don't know.
Okay.
But here's the thing. I might, if I come back.
How old are you right now?
I am 40 now.
Okay.
Yeah. If I do come back, it's not going to be at the highest level. Like, that's what I'm thinking, at least. It's not going to be at the highest level. A big part of the reason actually that I retired was because of my first son.
Okay.
But the fire was still in there.
Let's talk about that. How many children do you have?
2.
Okay. And you retired. Give me a little understanding of that. You retired because of your first son reasoning.
Yeah. So I actually didn't know that was going to be the case. Like, there were signs of it, because I say the fire's still there, but I wasn't driving my fire towards that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
The conditioning, I wasn't conditioning as hard as I normally would. And when I was getting ready for the fight, like how you were talking about that fighter preparation, well, I know how to prepare because I've prepared for a lot of fights, and a lot of fights before fighting, just in the athletic arena. But I was like this weird sort of scared. Like, it was a different kind of fear that I had. And I'm like, I really don't want to get hurt. Like, what the hell's going on? And I get in there and I realize, like, holy shit, I don't want to get hurt because of my kid. Like, I want to make sure that I can hold my kid and take care of my kid. And I'm already in the cage. So I'm already in the cage, like, fuck. Like, let me get out of this one. Like, let me just find a way to get out of this one.
Who were you fighting? Where was that last fight?
A badass Russian.
And was it which league was it?
This was in the ACB. It's called the ACB.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm like, he throws spinning kicks and all sorts. I really feel that a solid Clifford Starks could knock him out. And I'm sure every fighter says they can knock everybody out. But I really feel like if I were to have prepared the way I should have prepared, it would have been a different fight. But it is what it is, and I was very hesitant. I actually hurt him pretty badly in the second round, and I went down for a take. Like, I wasn't fighting like I could fight, and I could tell that I wasn't fighting like I could fight. And that's when I knew, like, yep, this is really, really it. Like, I'm done.
Let's then transition into fatherhood. What does fatherhood mean to you?
Man, like, I couldn't describe it in any way, because it's undescribable, and I get an opportunity. And you know how you say everything has a purpose? So the first thing I remember about my father, my biological father, it wasn't him driving away. It was actually, there was this Ghostbuster ride that I wanted to get on. And he wouldn't get on the Ghostbuster ride with me. And I was really, really scared to get on it by myself. And he wouldn't get on it with me either. And I look back and as an adult, I wish I would have gotten on that Ghostbuster ride, of all things. As a 4-year-old kid, I wish I would have gotten on that Ghostbuster ride, but I didn't. And I look now, and I have opportunities. I have opportunities to remind my kids, hey, experience as much as you can experience along the way. See what you can do. And dad wants to experience with you as much as he can too.
I love that.
Because they come and they go. Yeah.
I love that. I'm all about, one thing we do is and Nina knows that, but it's the 3 to 7. I try to be home every single day from 3 to 7 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I lock it in as my non-negotiable in my schedule. So I sacrifice other things. I'm up super early or I work super late, not to lose any momentum or anything towards my businesses, but I sacrifice other things so I can lock in those non-negotiables with my family, with my kids. And I'm the type where everything I do, I lead by example. Like my kids are fitness fanatics. I work out with them. I go on bike rides with them every day. We do things together where it's everything I say we do together, and I lead by example. And I think it's very important because as you're saying that, I would never not go on that ride with my kids. I will never not do this with my kids because I make sure I want to build those memories because there's so many stats. There's a stat out there that says 90% of the FaceTime you're gonna have with your kids before the age of 18. And you want to be able to build those memories, dock those memories, and live with almost that non-regret that one day when you are not here, that memory bank is so filled that they could just sit there for the rest of their lives telling their grandkids stories about you.
Yeah.
And I think it's so powerful that you're saying that and you're aware of it because a lot of people aren't aware of it, right? Yeah. So they just go by their normal days and they numb out and they get home and they think they're spending time with their family, but they're not present.
Yeah.
Yeah. And being present in this quality time, right? I mean, you could spend 3 hours with your kids and not have quality present time, or spend half an hour and have quality present time. The kids are going to remember that quality present time a lot more than those 3 hours sitting on the couch on your phone with on their video game on the other couch. So having those moments with your stepdad or your dad, I should say, what does he mean to you?
Everything, just and I'm a little bit different this way because I say everything means everything to me. It's very rare.
Okay.
And I look at it and say, like, every bad, shitty thing that's ever happened in your life, it's my opportunity, mine. I get to decide how that shows up for me. And every positive, amazing thing that's ever happened to me, it's my opportunity. I get to decide what that means to me. And so my dad, he was there for me. He was there for me, and he taught me a lot of lessons, and he'll continue to teach me a lot of lessons, and I'll teach him a lot of lessons. And the same with my kids. They're going to teach me a lot, and I'm going to teach them a lot, and we're going to grow together. But my dad is a man of integrity, a man of honor, and a man of taking responsibility. And those were very, very powerful skill sets on my journey. Those are a couple of my core values right there. And he always questioned things in a healthy way. I think it's important to question things and ask yourself, is what I'm doing right or is it not? And is this right for me right now? Or is there something better that I can do? Is there a better way? And I always look at those moments and hold on to them and practice them.
I love what you said there, Clifford, is a lot of people will ask the questions, but they don't ask themselves the questions.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you ask yourself the questions, it allows you to kind of, I understand NLP, I'm not into it, but it allows you to kind of look at through an outside lens.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important every once in a while to sit back and just observe what is really happening in your life. Because a lot of times you're living in a life, you're not really aware of what's happening in it. And being able to sit back from an outer lens and look at the whole picture and ask yourself, is this really meaningful? Am I doing the right decision? My decisions, how many people is it going to affect? Right. So I love all those things. I'm going to ask you a couple more questions. If you had a superpower, what would it be? And because you have a complete Superman superhero name. So what would you be your superpower?
It's what I already have. It's our resilience, being as resilient as possible. Because if you're resilient, you can adapt. Yeah. And I might not be the fastest to adapt, but I know that I can eventually. I'll get to where I need to go and become what I need to become.
I'm gonna ask you two more actually,
Okay.
and we really haven't talked about her. Your mom.
Hmm.
What does she mean to you?
Um, my mom's my rock. I wouldn't be here without her. She, I was already confident enough when I was a kid. I was very, very confident. And she instilled even more confidence in me. To be even like I have this weird kind of amazing level of confidence where I know I can do anything because she had me practice things I didn't want to sometimes.
Yeah.
And I got really good. And then I realized what the practice was there for. In life, we're always looking for our results, but it's the internal pieces. It's the character building. It's all
Yeah.
those other things that make a winner, that make a champion.
Yeah.
Champion's not like, hey, I got this gold medal. Like it's a piece,
Yeah.
but that internal building,
Self-belief.
yeah, is really what makes it happen. And she was there for me. She was there for me. And she wasn't there for me. And what I mean wasn't is she allowed me to be me.
Yeah.
Allowed me to be
Allows you
my
to
own
grow.
person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's important. I'm going to do the same for my kids, and in some ways they may understand it, in some ways they may not. I want them to look within and go like, Daddy did everything he could to make you your best you in your process.
Yeah. And there's a process to everything, right? I'm very with my kids is all about I mean, from a very young age, and there's a whole story behind my son, which we won't get into, but from a very young age, I've built this self-belief in them, even
Mm-hmm.
to the point where I got two signs made from a very young age from outside their bedroom door. And it says, I believe in myself. And it's, and I would do that manifestation every night to make him read it out loud, read it out loud, read it out loud 5, 6 times. And it's being that self-belief where you put them in situations
Mm-hmm.
where you're pushing them to be their best. But I'm also that hard one where I'm constantly want them to learn how to be winners, how to be
Yeah.
first at everything. So I hate the participation ribbons. I can't stand that shit. I'm all
Yeah.
about if you're going to do something, you're going to be the best at it. And if you lose, you're going to learn your lessons. You're going to figure out what you did wrong. You're going to go back and win the second time. And
Yeah.
and I'm always pushing that for them to be the best at everything they can. And I'm also about learning how to be independent. Like my kids are 13, 15, and they cook, clean, do laundry. We get home, me and my wife get home from the office or to work, and my daughter at 15 has dinner ready for us. And we've been and our kids have been doing this from a very young age because I want them to learn how to be independent, how to learn how to fend for themselves. And it's not me being a hard ass or trying to take advantage, it's me teaching them life skills. Because I think a lot of people don't teach their kids life skills. They baby. And then when the kids are put into the world, it's that whole situation where they feel like everything is due to them. And they don't understand the work ethic. They don't understand how to hustle for something. They don't understand. They got to push their rear to be the best at everything you can. So I try to, from a very young age, instill that and build that and push that into them, right?
Yeah.
If something were to happen to you today,
Mm-hmm.
in a few words, how would you want to be remembered or described by your loved ones?
It's a good question. A man who did his best, took action and created his dreams, helped others create their dreams, and always pushed past the comfort zone, did his best to lead and remind people to go after what you want to go after.
Yeah.
Always go after what you want to go after, because when you get it, it's worth it. And you can teach others to do the same.
I love it. Love it. This has been an amazing conversation. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
On our show notes, I'm going to put how to get a hold of Clifford through his website, through his all social media links, all that stuff like that. Anything you want to leave our audience with?
I just want to say, Jeff, thank you. I look forward to growing the relationship with you. And for the audience, there's greatness in you. and it's always going to be in you. But the question is, are we going to act on it? That's always the question. And the cool thing is we get to answer that question every day. It's not one time that I answered the question. It's every day I get up, I get an opportunity to answer the question. So I hope you just answer, yeah, I am great and I'm going to do great things on a daily basis and see what you bring to the world, because there's always more people watching you than you think.
Yeah. Very true. Very, very, very true. Love it. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate your time, my brother.
That's a wrap for today. I want to thank our guest, Clifford, for taking time with his incredibly busy schedule to be the guest on the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. If you guys enjoy this episode as much as I have, like all weeks, tell your friends, tell your family, spread the word. We're trying to build something special here. Until next week, guys, keep moving forward.